what has been one of the most determining aspects of my life that is unique and that in a way had nothing to do with me. It kind of was it came with my being alive, with my existence, and was imposed on me. And it has to do with being the child of concentration camp survivors, of Holocaust survivors. Because it connects you instantly to a larger history. You are not just the daughter of two people. And you're not even just the daughter of a tribe. You are the descendant, or you are the symbol, more correctly, of survival and revival for people who lost 200 people each. So your life from the first day on is bigger than just you. You carry the name of somebody who's no longer there. You have a mission. The mission is to repopulate, to letting your parents know that they were still human beings who could still procreate, to being that symbol that death didn't prevail and dehumanization didn't prevail, that there is life after, and that there must be joy in that life after. That it's not just about surviving, but it's about reviving. It's about bringing back aliveness, an essence, a vitality, an energy into the world. So when I was 4 years old, I remember asking my parents about numbers on the arms from Auschwitz, and I remember asking why I don't have grandparents. And that's the first way you understand that everybody else seems to have grandparents, and why don't you? And then you are told, they died, and then you find out where they died, and you're just at first told they died in the war, and then you're told they died in the concentration camp, and then you're told how many other people went, and then you find out your parents are the sole survivors of their entire clan. And then you find out what you mean to them. And then you begin to connect yourself with that larger history. And I think that the epiphany then becomes really gradual rather than a singular moment of what I'm here to do. I'm not just here to be a small speck, and at the same time it makes you feel special and expanded if you want, but also very burdened because you better do big things. It's like when you ask me about the book, it better be a good book. It had to be a good book. It couldn't just be an okay book. Nothing in my life could just be okay, good enough. It had to be bigger than good enough, because if you were just good enough, you didn't survive. Only if you were really big, really daring, really cunning, really determined, besides luck, those are the conditions you needed to survive. So halfway didn't get you there. In my community, where I grew up in Belgium, which had an enormous amount of survivors among them, there were kind of two groups of people, those who didn't die and those who came back to life. And the people who didn't die were people who often lived very tethered to the ground, very fearful, didn't take the risks anymore to go out into the world, didn't trust that the world was a safe place, and generally could not experience much joy without guilt, and neither could their children. They were surviving, but they were not really alive. And the other group were people who I considered had come back to life. And those were the people who understood the erotic as an antidote to death. Eroticism, sex, when you experience it as its full intensity, you are defying death. You are feeling alive like no other moment. And it implies playfulness, and it implies risk, and it implies daring, and it implies imagination. It implies being able once again to experience, the key word is aliveness. Eroticism for me is about aliveness. It's the mystical sense of the word rather than what modernity has done, which is reduce it to sex. And that when people come to my office and they complain about the listlessness of their sex lives, they sometimes want more sex, but what they really want is better sex. And the better is to reconnect with the erotic dimension of sex, with the poetry of sex, with aliveness, vitality, vibrancy, playfulness, renewal, all that stuff that I had seen among these Holocaust survivors, of which luckily my parents were representatives of. They knew how to keep themselves alive. When I work with couples on sexuality, when I work on desire, it's about how one maintains a sense of aliveness, a connection to one's erotic self. It's really not about frequency, positions, technique, statistics of sex. It's about that erotic dimension. And connecting the history of the Holocaust of my family, which is actually a history of suffering, if you want, with the concept of sex and eroticism as a history of aliveness or an expression of aliveness, that was an epiphany.